There's no denying that AI agents will transform work, but there's no roadmap for how to design successful agents. Jamil Valiani, Atlassian's VP and Head of Product AI, joins us to share his secrets for building AI products in one of the most respected ecosystems in tech: Jira, Confluence, Bitbucket, Trello, and more. He also spent 15 years leading products at Microsoft. In this episode, you'll learn which types of problems to focus on, measuring the effectiveness of your AI product, AI capabilities and features that will define the future of work, and how to compete as a founder and small startup. This episode offers strategic and practical advice for product managers, designers, researchers, and founders who are embarking on creating successful AI products. This is episode 40 of the Design of AI podcast. We provide practical strategies to ensure your AI product succeeds. Follow us on Substack and LinkedIn to get even more AI product strategy content. And another important update. We've been getting a lot of messages from product teams. They're getting pushed to build AI products without a clear strategy. They're being asked to use AI as a secret weapon to gain a competitive advantage without a clear direction for how. So join us on Thursday, September 18th for an online AI product strategy workshop led by my co-host, Arpi Dragfi, and myself. You'll learn the best steps to identify, ideate, and test AI products. This workshop will be small and extremely hands-on. We'll focus on how to leverage AI to enhance an existing app or website, as well as how to define an industry-defining net new product. This workshop will happen on September 18th. Be sure to register as early as possible at designof.ai/workshop.
Oh, Jamil, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start with a simple yet powerful headline from your Team 25 conference: to unleash the potential of every team. What does unleashing the potential look like, and how are today's LLMs enabling that?
So first of all, thank you for having me here. I'm really excited to share the story of Atlassian's AI transformation and the work we're doing for our customers with all of you. At Atlassian, we believe that unleashing the potential of every team looks like enabling teams to achieve more through seamless AI collaboration. We think that the future of teamwork is about viewing and leveraging AI as a strategic teammate rather than just a tool. That means the LLMs are able to help us do things like remove friction. We believe that AI has to be easily accessible and woven into the tools used every day, like search and chat agents and the products that help you manage your work and your knowledge. The personalization element is also enormous with these models. They can absorb a ton of context, and every organization, every team, every person has unique needs. So we're able to leverage this deep understanding of that to deliver personalized, context-aware assistance. This idea of collaboration with a model is a unique and new and powerful thing. The most successful teams, we think, will not treat AI as like a simple button that you press and just some stuff happens and you go away, but really this ability to say, let me take some output I got and work with the AI, collaborate with it as if it's the sous chef in the kitchen. So that's one of the reasons why we were the first to introduce this idea of agents joining your team. Just like a regular colleague, like you'd see their work, you'd get feedback on it, you'd say, okay, let's go and adjust and then rework this thing together. And the joint power of that is what actually creates step function growth and productivity and opportunity and creativity for the human teams at the end of the day.
Amazing. So happy to have you here. Now, we're basically in our third year of this LLM craze. To many, they feel like this is constantly evolving. And if we look back at the past conferences you probably had, some of the announcements from 2-3 years ago maybe never came to fruition the same way they did today. You just had your big team conference. What are some of the announcements that you are most proud of or more excited about, ones that really demonstrate the potential, both short-term and long-term, of Gen AI as part of Atlassian?
It was an amazing year, and the announcement we made at Team 25 in Anaheim a few weeks ago that we're making our AI solution, Rovo, available to the majority of our paying customers. So they'll be able to experience it as part of their subscription and benefit a ton. Rovo has a set of tools we feel are essential for the everyday AI empowered team. It includes things like AI-powered search and chat. So with that, you can go in and say, hey, there's a single place to search not just your Atlassian content, but your entire company's worth of content, and then use chat to start asking questions and sparring ideas based on that content. So you're actually able to go in and have this organizationally aware knowledge, chat, and brainstorming experience rather than one that's just grounded only on web data, which may not have the context of your work. We're also provided a bunch of agents that were ready to use out of the box. So a lot of folks have heard about this agent thing. They're saying, well, okay, that sounds great, but how do I get started? What can I do for me? So we looked at a bunch of just common rituals that a lot of teams do, like managing the bug list. How do you go in, make sure that I edit a document in the right tone of a company or of a team? So we provided a bunch of these as like samples that everyone can freely use and adapt. And then we're hoping that that stimulates a bunch of growth and use of these agents to add extra hands. We also did a bunch of work just on core quality because we have access to so much history of a company's data and their way they worked, the goals, the projects, the teams, the key people. We have a lot of opportunity to go in and really deliver the best quality search results and chat experience and agent experience to all of our customers. So we did just a crazy amount of work to improve relevance and had some of the best scientists in the world who worked on some major AI products in the past, just really focused on delivering just amazing quality. So I think when people start using our products and Rovo itself, I think they'll see just a significantly better experience than they might be having when they use some of the more vanilla off-the-shelf products that don't have access to that much data and the team backing it. So that's immediate value that we're giving to customers that they can just experience now. On the longer term side, we announced this product we call Rovo Studio, which will also be part of our platform and included for our paying subscribers. The Studio offers the ability to use AI to build your own AI agents, automations, assets, even applications. And so teams can really now at much larger scale use natural language to create workflows, connect to different knowledge sources and run these like bulk automations and even build new little internal applications that help accelerate their progress. Before, you had to have a lot of deep knowledge to go and make those kinds of tools. But with Studio, our ambition is to go and make it so that anyone on the team, regardless of their background, can go and just describe the type of application they want or the agent they need. And it instantly just produces sophisticated, high quality experience that works in your organizational context, meets all the right requirements, no additional approvals required. We think that that's going to unlock just a bunch more, again, energy and opportunity for team members. We're bringing parts of this to market already, and you'll see more and more of it over time. But we believe that'll accelerate that experimentation that teams are doing right now with building their own custom agents and AI applications and shift them from being these more simplistic interactions, which are still helpful, to things that are like now strategic collaborators that are just offering step functions more productivity.
A year or two ago, it was a big deal when an organization had a tool that generated text for you for an email or a campaign.
Right.
We're talking about some pretty sophisticated stuff here. But you also talked about unlocking first-party data, and you're one of the only platforms that's really equipped to do that. You manage so much important data about how organizations are run, and it sounds like you finally found these tools to really just empower teams to do that. How did you go about the process of mapping the use cases and where to prioritize? Because it'd be easy to boil the ocean in this case.
Sure. It's a great question. One of the most important things we did throughout the last few years, especially in this AI transformation journey, is just get really close to some of our early adopter customers. These are folks who, like us, saw the opportunity and were really excited about transforming their business and cutting a lot of the pain out of the day-to-day treasury. And so we just sat with them. We had early versions of Rovo that we turned on for them, and we sat with them and said, tell us your pain, right? What are the things that your teams do every day that just feel like the stuff that you have to do, but you're not really paid to do, like managing your roadmap or updating a document to match a certain format, managing your bug lists and those sorts of things. And we actually said, okay, let's try using the technology we have to try to solve that problem in a much easier way. And we'll just try it live with you. So one of the customers that was on stage with me at our conference a few weeks ago was Procore. We did that with them. Like we actually got a chance to work with them hand in hand for over a course of months. They were beta customers. And we were able to go and help them reduce the time they spent making roadmaps by, I think, 75%, if I remember correctly. It was pretty insane. And again, that's not a task that like you're going to go home and say, hey, Mom, guess what? I don't have to write roadmaps anymore. It's just, but the fact that it's done for you and you can go and spend your time thinking about other things is what just caused customers like Procore to get really excited. HarperCollins, same thing. We sat with them and worked on agents together. We worked with other customers on search and trying to help them cut. Right now, people spend sometimes a full day a week of their lives just finding information. And so we said, hey, look, can we go and provide better tools around search, intelligent answers that just cut that time by quite a bit? And we've had customers that said, yeah, when you go and put these sort of AI answers in, it really just helped me not just get a better search result, but it saved me from clicking a bunch of times. So a lot of that hands-on work with customers was vital. It also helped us make sure that the products were easy to adopt. So we had a large potential set of use cases that we came up with our customers, but we said, look, like we know that a lot of times that first time you use AI or any new product or capability, it's a bit intimidating. It's a lot of unknowns. So we try to go for those use cases that just kind of glided right in naturally with the team's rituals. That they can even be put into automations, for example, so that people don't have to even actively think about them running. But when they would run, they would say, oh, yeah, that AI thing is working. It really did help me out a bit. So we really focus on ease of adoption as well and just try to weave it into everyone's work. We did some work around personalization. If you think about every team, every organization, they tend to have a certain way they work. Like some teams appreciate conciseness, or they like having more fun in their work. They'll put emojis in their documents and those sorts of things. These are little things that they sound so trivial, but when the AI is able to understand and know that, and it produces output that reflects that, it helps you both trust it more, and it makes it more ready to use and transport into the real world. We focused on, of course, practical value. We wanted to make sure everything that we did had real value. And last thing I'd say is this idea of responsible and ethical use of technology. We were definitely aware from the early days that when customers see this, and maybe an end user sees this thing entering their space, they could think of all the ways it could be used in an unethical way or in a way that would be super uncomfortable. And it was really important to us that everyone's first and ongoing experience, for that matter, felt like it was being done with their benefits in mind. And so we really screened out aggressively against cases that would just be potentially using AI in a way that would make people uncomfortable or just didn't feel ethical. So those were kind of some of the things we were looking at as we first looked at the use cases we were going after.
Thank you for listening to the Design of AI podcast. This episode was hosted by Brittany Hobbs and Arpi Dragfiguerero. If you enjoy learning about AI product strategies, make sure to follow us on your favorite podcasting apps. And please make sure to rate this podcast if you find it valuable. Your ratings and comments are the best way to influence which topics we cover in future episodes.
One of the other situations that I find organizations are ending up in because of AI is so powerful, it can do so many things, is sometimes the available use cases don't necessarily align with the product or even the organizational vision. How do you reality check yourself so that you're not veering too much into, let's say hypothetically, what Google does with Workspace, or veer too much into what Salesforce is doing? Because again, the AI makes it easy to believe you can do anything.
One of the things that's important is that you have that discussion with your customer, or even as a team, if you're building on your own, and just really focus in on sort of problems that seem small. Like, I don't think you have to go and say, oh, like if AI can't solve this big grand problem, it's not useful. A lot of the best tools in our lives, even before AI, were things that solved at first pretty simple problems, and then you start stacking them together to solve more and more complicated ones. But the reality is that when you solve even a simple problem, it's like the problems downstream just feel a lot easier, a lot more manageable. You have more time to think and be creative. A simple analogy could be replacing a simple manual tool with a power tool, right? You solve technically just one narrow step, but oh my God, like the fact that you can do that one simple step 20x faster without getting fatigued makes you a lot more productive. That's where we encourage our customers to look, is to say, yes, have lofty ambitions for sure, but won't scope down your first problems and opportunities well, and really just focus in on making sure that it's effective at solving that problem, that we can go and say, hey, let's go and learn from as many cases as possible of that one problem. And then we make sure we weave it into a place where it can be easily accessed automatically or with one click of a button or in some prominent place, so folks have a reason to go try it. Those were the things that really wound up mattering a lot when we were trying to bridge this gap of lofty ambition to things that on the ground, like tangible results and the feeling of improvement. I mentioned earlier some of the benefits that our customers saw, like that was because of those steps.
As a researcher who is constantly having to fight for a place at the table to say we need to be incorporating users into this work, I have to say I'm in awe of the approach that you took to identifying those use cases, but also building out that sort of criteria of like what deliver the best value or the best quality results meant to you. And that really collaborative, co-creative approach, I think, is really impactful. And I would love to see more organizations take that on. Is there anything that you learned from that approach that you would recommend to people if they do want to take that sort of beta client approach, knowing now you wish you had done better to make it more effective?
That's a great question. A couple of things come to mind. I think the first is that we found that every organization usually has a few teams that are highly motivated to try new things, to take risks, both culturally. There's some teams that just attract those kinds of people who just want to try new tools all the time, and because of their pressures. So, for example, a lot of teams that are in service management, their whole goal in life is to reduce the cost of handling every ticket while maintaining or increasing the customer experience. That immense pressure leads them to saying, hey, I want to try different things. We got to figure out ways to really transform this. Try to improve by 1% every month is just not sufficient. And really starting with those teams, like finding them, they're saying, okay, like tell us where that kind of pain is or where that kind of culture is present, and let's go to them first. Starting with that narrow set really and getting a few wins with them really created stories that people would retell and they would share. They would record on a loom and just broadcast it out. And those really wins just tended to start a positive feedback loop and a cycle of folks just wanting to try more and more things, other folks in the team wanting to try to learn from them and adopt, but also turn them into champions. And I think champions are super effective in a company so that when those champions form, then they can talk to those teams and talk to us even about, hey, we actually want to try the same thing out. The second thing was that leaders really make a big difference in the way the leaders are openly and humbly embracing the transformation themselves and sharing their experience as they go along. Our own CEO and president, both of them are using new AI tools every day. They're trying to build robo agents every day. And they post in our internal Slack channels with lots of employees looking, I tried this and it didn't work, or I tried this and I had a great experience. What do you guys think about this tool? It really happens that openly. And when teams see that their leaders are solving everyday problems, or at least trying to with AI and are working through the challenges and are trying out different alternatives or reprompting themselves, that really encourages them to take those risks. It makes those risks feel okay. It makes that feeling of, if I do something wrong, everyone's learning at the same time. They're all collaborating with AI. I find that those two things really helped, both with us kind of building our relationship and getting started with the customer, and then those customers also internally fostering this change.
You could build the most amazing product that has the highest quality data set within it, but teams are either scared to use it, don't know how to use it, don't know what to do with it. You mentioned leadership are important. You mentioned champions are important. What did you learn about overcoming the adoption barrier that is blocking so many companies from actually achieving product market fit?
Totally. We're still working on this, but there's a lot of signs and reasons for optimism. We first released Rovo about 7-8 months ago. And since then, the number of Atlassian customers who use AI has already doubled, right? Every time we kind of release something new and we are able to kind of give more tools to customers, give them a chance to really sit with it, they're starting to adopt, right? They see that value and they're seeing people around them starting to use it. So I think that we're, as an industry, and especially within Atlassian, trying to go from that point where AI is just like, it's too scary to use to like, oh, okay, there's something here it's worth engaging with. There is some value to get out of this. Their next challenge now is to say, okay, how do you go from this being a tool you use sometimes to get maybe simple things done or get maybe quick brainstorming or writing help to something that's actually solving a complicated problem that is worth going to every day, and that is a comfortable sparring partner and a comfortable thought partner, a comfortable work buddy. One of the biggest things that helps is to weave these capabilities into the products and flows and processes that are already happening. So it doesn't become like I can do this or I can use AI. It's more like, I tried this and by the way, the AI just tried this step on its own on the side. And here's some output and I can make a choice if I want to use it or not. So that ability to weave it in so it's already occurring, but that you also have a chance to see and intercede and adjust its course. And I think really matters is people see it getting better. Oh yeah, no, this is pretty good now. And maybe I will take this output and start using it. That's a different way of working that people are used to, where they were using their SaaS applications in the past and their PCs more generally. They're used to like a pretty deterministic experience, right? And so you click the button, you run that app, you knew exactly what to expect. And so people were used to treating these machines like tools, and that adoption challenge is a psychological one of saying, it's no longer really a tool with a deterministic outcome. It's more of a partner, and it can produce a lot more, but I got to maybe feed a bit more into it. So I expect that as we get people comfortable with that and we make that process easier and more natural, we'll also see adoption climb quite a bit.
So another hot topic, aside from adoption, is proving value, right? So proving value of these new features or these new AI capabilities once you've decided on the use case. Do you tend to take a more top-down approach, so measuring satisfaction and completion, or more bottom-up, so tracking usage and accuracy, or something else?
They're both really important. At the end of the day, when we go talk to customers, they really do need some sort of set of top-down promises or clear opportunity statements. So we do quite a bit of measuring when it comes to, like I said, uses of search and looking at, hey, how much time do people save at the end of the day? Like looking at the whole week, do they spend less time overall doing search? Is their SAT higher? We measure those sorts of things. Same thing with using chat, for example. We know that, hey, overall chat success rates, we keep tracking them aggressively. And we're able to go and tell our customers, hey, this percentage of chat sessions are not successful. So that really helps with, talking to leaders and buyers to say, hey, are these tools really working in a way that is realized at an organizational level? But when we actually go and look at improving individual features and making sure that that grand output does happen, we are looking a lot bottoms up, right? We look obsessively at every capability in the agent space and the chat and search that we ship and say, hey, has that made the end user experience measurably better? Did it take a few less seconds to go find that result? Or was somebody able to go and understand how to take that action one more time than they may have before? Those are the types of things that we're actually analyzing closely and that the teams on the ground are looking at every day to know if they're headed in the right direction. And then we look at the end of the day, then the top-down metric to say, okay, is it lining up? And typically it does.
You are clearly super passionate about AI, and I love it. Can you tell us about your journey through product roles? What drew you to AI, and when did you notice that this was going to be transformative and valuable technology?
So I graduated and entered the industry back in 2003, and that was in the rebuilding stage after the dot-com crash. It was quite a shaken landscape at the time. Spent a couple of years in security space at Microsoft, and at the time that was a really hot area because all these computers were getting on the internet for the first time in like a permanently on state. So there were many new types of vulnerabilities and things like that were coming to bear. And I saw that the level of IQ and smarts that were brought to bear on that problem, both at Microsoft and also throughout the industry, was crazy impressive. And so I enjoyed my first couple of years in that. And of course, the security story improved over those couple of years, and it was great. But I learned this lesson that whenever there's a massive problem in the industry or a huge sort of complicated problem, the sort of level of focus and intelligence that comes onto that problem is enormous. So a couple of years later is when search technologies were really becoming super important. Like Google was starting to emerge. People realized that the internet was hugely transformational, permanent technology that was going to change the way everything works in society, and that finding information would be a problem. And so that's what drew me to search. And I built the majority of my product management career in the search space after I finished in security. And it was a space that was so complicated and so challenging, yet so critical to everyday life for people as they became more and more online, that the number of challenges just never ended. We were starting small. My first project was to go and help make a basic version of news search work. Like if I search for something that's happening in the news, how do I make sure I'm able to find it? That was my first exposure to AI, right? So gosh, there are millions of news articles published in many languages around the world every day. How do you even know what terms are relevant? There was no sort of way outside of like very early day AI technology to go and analyze that amount of data and pull out terms that could be relevant just to even think about showing news. So these were like problems that now just seem so basic, but were really hard and required some of the world's like best scientific thinking at the time. And I was just absorbing content like a sponge. And as we got better and better, what I noticed is that all the major steps forward in solving search problems were typically AI grounded. It turned out that because of the sheer complexity of search and that it's going to operate, it was like a breeding ground for AI-based solutions that took a radically different approach to reasoning over large amounts of data. I spent a lot of my career in image and video search, which was next level of complexity because you're not analyzing words, you're analyzing media. And if you ever watched Silicon Valley TV show, there was this hot dog, not hot dog thing, which now just sounds so goofy and silly. But back then, like that was a really hard problem, actually, right? It sounded so ludicrous. But things like that, I had a chance to work on and got probably even closer to technology. And I started seeing also real world application. So for example, we had a case where Warren Buffett had a company that, or I think he owned a train company or something like that. And one of the challenges that one of his companies brought to us was, hey, we have miles and miles and miles of track. How do we use computer vision to go and find debris on the railway that could stop transportation traffic? And I was like, wow, that's actually a really impactful problem. It's not just helping people find cute images on the internet of dogs. It's a real problem that could be meaningful. That sort of opened my eyes to the sheer transformative impact AI could have that went beyond the consumer use cases and into the business use cases. Many years later led me to Atlassian, right? Can I take all this knowledge that I picked up building AI products for 20 years in the search space at Microsoft to solve problems that really unleash businesses and teams to do so much more? And I just found that to be a super exciting opportunity. The people I found, joining Atlassian and really helping run this problem and, being the engineering force behind it were some people I really respected, that people I had followed and admired for years, who had been at Microsoft, Google, Meta, Amazon, like people who were really luminaries. And I felt like confident that the team here was the right team to go in, take advantage of that opportunity. So
It's amazing to hear the story, but also it's amazing to hear how really it's just the technology is getting more complicated and the problems are getting bigger. But it sounds like the same intrepid mindset is still the case, where you're not really sure how you're going to tackle this thing. You just need to figure it out. Now, when we
absolutely.
think about that, you spent some time at Microsoft. Microsoft's been one of the big entrants in this whole space. They were one of the big ones that kick off the functionality and the capabilities and showcasing it with Copilot. Some people think Copilot was amazing. Some people think Copilot hasn't been so successful. When you and your team evaluate the other tools similar to Rovo, what are the core lessons that you've been pulling in from the people that predated you?
I spent almost 20 years at Microsoft working on AI and search in a very consumery setting, but also I had a stint working on AI features and products like Outlook and Teams. So I saw the promise of what both really great AI could do for teams in the earliest of days pre-LLM, and also just some horrible misfires, right? Things that just didn't work at all. And I think that the combination of Chat GPT coming out and Copilot shortly thereafter really was a huge leap forward in making the kind of technology and capability that was previously only locked away to a handful of the world's biggest, most capitalized companies. But that doesn't mean that everyone can just plug it in and it works and delivers the same impact that it had for those big companies. There are just some basic lessons that hold up that beyond the model. So for example, just the whole thing we discussed about embedding the technology in the workflows you already use. So you don't have to think about, did I activate AI here? It just should just work. And that's actually a pretty hard problem. I think, again, people have a reasonable expectation that tools work in a deterministic way, and AI is just fundamentally not that. So setting that expectation is a hard thing. The nature of not being one size fits all. There are so many enterprises out there that solve different problems, that are in different countries with different cultures and different people, the types of customers they have and what they need and their requirements. It really just means that your model just can't serve one problem and that's that, and it works universally everywhere. You have to make it so that your technology stack and the AI that powers it is flexible to accommodate all the different needs. That idea of encouraging experimentation and building, search was one of the pioneering technologies for like this experimentation wave. Hey, can you decrease the length of the cycle time, increase the number of cycles that people have to try things out? It was just a massive unlock. And so when we built, for example, the Rovo Studio and said, let's help people build agents, we brought that thinking to bear, saying it's really important for people to go in and feel like they can create the agents themselves and just constantly tweak them until they get what they want and make that as easy as possible. So that's an example of experimentation making its way from previously hardcore technology challenge to everyday user. The other thing that we thought about a lot was how do you measure impact, not just the usage? We really obsessed in search, for example, we would first measure relevance looking at this thing called NDCG, which is a fancy way of saying we look at the results returned and we give more weight to the results that are better if they're at the top. Based on the positioning of the right results, we give it more points. If it's a good result at a lower position, we give it less points. And maybe if bad results on top, it also may penalize you, right? We did that kind of measurement offline and it was good for starters. But we realized over time that, search is a lot more than just what results are in what position. We moved to online metrics that helped actually track, how long did it take for you to actually find that result? Or did you seem like you find a result, but then you click back pretty often? And is that a success or a failure? So we got pretty sophisticated. Now we measured the impact of the work, not just the usage or not just the offline metric that told us artificially that the quality is probably fine. And we brought the same thinking to Rovo. You'll use a lot of the same techniques to measure the quality of our search and chat experiences and make sure that the users are actually experiencing success, not just that the answer just looks good at the glance of an eye. That helps us understand, are people actually starting to save time and see real benefit from this? Last thing I think about is just keeping humans in the loop. I think that was an important lesson for us, just to help not feel like the AI was taking over with that. It was partnering with you. And that's a core part of our philosophy in building AI now.
You were saying before, we historically have looked at software as it's a thing that you run, you expect it to work a certain way. And now we're much more exploratory. We have this partner in collaboration. How has that changed the KPIs that you're actually tracking? Because time on site, time on task, those are not necessarily as straightforward as they historically have been. And then how are you also then reinforcing that back into the learning and the training of the systems themselves so that they can also get better at the nuance in those KPIs and those success and experience metrics?
I think there are a few lenses we look at here. The first is on the sort of must-have tools like search and chat. There are a set of online and offline metrics that help us pretty deeply understand value and satisfaction that we continue to track and are pretty mature. And these are products that have been around in various forms and iterations for a while. I think where things get ambiguous is when you say, okay, well, let's take those things out of this simple search or knowledge interrogation context most people are used to, and into these new contexts where they're actually doing work for you or helping you with a task. That's where it gets way harder because everyone's tasks are different and the definition of success can look quite wildly different. There's an emerging category of tasks where the output is pretty easily defined by the customer, right? So you work in a customer service context. There's a clear ability for them to go and say, this call or this ticket was resolved successfully. And you can measure the time it took to resolve it and say, yeah, I'm satisfied with that, or no, I'm not. Doesn't mean it's super, trivial. It's something you can put your arms around. You can write down the criteria, explain it to a human and to a model. And you can start saying, okay, I can benchmark and say, hey, did I get the value out of it? This agent had a 90% success rate. It was able to go and resolve things in 2 turns. And that saved my human team this many tickets, and they could focus that time instead on really complicated customer problems or delighting customers who needed more handholding or those sorts of things. So we can start helping customers tie value to that. We can tell them, like, this is the time, this is the number of tickets resolved. They can associate the value with that based on how they run their business. And that becomes like a pretty straightforward calculus. So there's a set of agents and AI technologies that are playing in that realm. So I think we're seeing better tools there, and then we're seeing business model shifts to these outcome-based pricing models. The set that's perhaps a bit harder and still quite nascent, but it's very exciting, is this collaborative work. So I'm engaging with an agent to work on building a presentation or brainstorming something or helping me write or execute some complex research. This is where it's really difficult to go and say, I went back and forth with this thing 20 times and I produced something. The agent maybe did half the work, but it played a big role in helping me think and get set up. And we're seeing a lot of customers really engage in these tools. Like, the developer community is by far leading the charge here. Like, you have very few people are going and saying, I just used an AI-powered dev tool and I just typed in one prompt and it wrote the whole product for me. That's not really what happens. They use it to get started and then to quickly help them execute subtasks that maybe are tedious, that they want to just get 80% of the way done with. And then they can go and tweak, and AI is able to go and help them quite a bit with that. But it's hard to go and say, well, AI wrote this many lines of code, you should go and pay this much, or we should reward it. That's not really a valid measurement. In the interim, while we figure out how to value that, you'll see consumption-based models. Hey, look, we generally believe the more you query, the more value you're probably getting, so we'll charge you more. But I suspect that the way people attach value will evolve over time, and we'll see some pretty exciting new business models take shape there.
Atlassian sells very mature products. Anyone who's used Confluence, Jira, Bitbucket, you know what you're going to get. It's a very straightforward solution, very point-based, and in collaboration, they really define how we work. But we've just been talking about how some of these probabilistic products are hard to set KPIs to. The other factor about them is that they don't always come out with task success to the highest level. Sometimes there's variance, sometimes there's hallucinations. Sometimes you can query a quantitative measure and it'll give you different results at different times. How does an organization that is used to selling mature products that are extremely reliable to now selling more experimental things that are of a different entire frame of mind and business model in a sense?
Totally thoughtful question there. I think the first is trust. That there are so many new trust elements when it comes to bringing in this technology as a way of solving problems, that we have to do a lot of legwork to really build trust in the product and make sure that it meets all those requirements, but also in explaining to customers what we're doing and why they can trust this stack. So, for example, one category of concern is, what are you doing with my data? I know I'm feeding you lots of stuff and it's absorbing all this context. This is going to some fourth party somewhere that you're not telling us about. And my data start getting out there. And we do a lot of work to explain that we have agreements in place. We have all these protection mechanisms. We retain only for this much time. We only use it for these types of purposes to assure quality. For some folks, it's like, well, that's not enough. I want other options. And so we say, okay, let's go give you other options. And that's a pretty lengthy journey, right? Because customers themselves are trying to figure out what their thresholds are. A lot of them know that, look, we can't just like put our head in the sand and not even use the technology overall. That's not an option. But for them to go and say, okay, well, let me hear what Atlassian has to say. Let me go back, think about what our risk profile is and how we want to approach this. And we go back and forth, and our offerings will evolve and their positions also evolve. We've been getting to greater and greater occurrences now where the trust is there, but it's been a journey, right? I think there are a lot of other companies out there who just don't have the infrastructure, the thoughtfulness, the history, baseline, trust and compliance regs in place that they can't even do that. We're very fortunate to have made that investment and see it paying off now.
I've encountered your brand as one of the most trustworthy ones. And that's a unique thing. You and Microsoft are probably two of the most trustworthy brands. So you come in a position of strength, right?
It's hard earned, right? And easily lost. We really try to be thoughtful about that, saying, look, we want to push the envelope like crazy. But if we lose trust in the process, it's all for naught. And so we've invested quite a bit. The other thing we have to do in this transformation is, once you secure trust, you have to agree with your customer on reframing value. People are used to tools operating in a very deterministic way. Hey, when I get Jira, I know it's going to help me track my projects and it's going to have capabilities and these features on the back of the box. And now you're getting this brain, right? I can do a lot of things, but sometimes I'm wrong or I don't do everything. I can't perfectly tell you what I can and can't do. I'm evolving myself. People know how to work with that when it comes in human form, but not in machine form. That's a new thing. Reframing the relationship and the point of value people have with the tools as being a teammate and not just a tool. The good news is that AI-based products have been around for a long time, maybe in simpler form. Like when people look at their social media feed, people understand, oh yeah, there's like some sort of intelligence there that's deciding what I see. There's an understanding that like these things exist, but putting that in the work context, I think, is like a reframe that we have to have, and that we have to build the right experiences around so people kind of start understanding and accepting that, and then deciding that it's right. And then like the stuff like embedding into real workflows and just having that constant collaboration and feedback cycle.
We've been talking a lot about really, in hindsight, obvious features and things that you've learned about how to offload some of the friction that people have in their everyday. Part of your work is also in planning the future of products by making some assumptions about the future of work. So, for example, agents were predicted several years ago to change workflows, and now you're at the forefront of some of that work. Mm-hmm. So let's have a little fun. What predictions have been rolling around in your brain about the future of work or the future of how this technology can really positively impact us that you could share?
The thing is, as maybe a geek and builder at heart, but the thing that really excites me is that I think now pretty much everyone in the world can become a builder. We're going to go from knowledge being expressed as flat text files and maybe some graphics here and there into interactive pieces of code that really expand your mind quite a bit and help people explore your ideas and collaborate with you on new ideas. If you are empowering everyone on the planet in their own language, express their idea in the form of like an application or a complicated agent or experience, I think that just transforms just so much about what a human can achieve both individually and as a team. This idea of knowledge transforming is going to be a huge theme, and it's difficult to predict exactly how it's going to turn out. I would not be surprised at all if 5 years from now, you're seeing work not just in doc and things like that, but in the form of these like rich interactive elements and that you're working on folks with. I'm super, super excited about that. I also expect that the amount of time people spend doing the drudge work is just going to go down. Those types of things just kill spirit. And they typically are doing those processes because there's a communication challenge between many teams. Like, hey, I got 20 teams in the company have to go spend money. Well, there's a procurement form or a finance form that has to be filled out so that one person can go and parse through it all and make sure it all fits into the spreadsheet nicely. That made a lot of sense. But now you have agents and language models that can parse that. And so you can actually take a lot of that work off the person's plate, or at least make it way simpler. And that enables both the teams that have to fill out those forms and the people who actually have to go read those forms, their job's way, way, way easier. When you say, hey, we're going to take away a lot of that kind of process-oriented work from the workplace and really then just give people more and more time to like do the job they were hired to do, run the company more efficiently, come up with that next innovative idea, delight their customers. I expect that we'll just see a large rush towards like verticalized solutions and just go and just say, okay, we built all the right agents for this industry to go and solve the most common types of just painful challenges every day. And we're just going to take them off. And that'll result in people spending a lot more time at work, not on the process stuff. Yeah, I'll be so excited 5 years from now if folks are saying, like every day they come up with a smile on their face because they have to deal with like the bureaucracies and they spend their entire time just doing stuff that brought them joy. So those are a couple of things I think will happen.
One of the things that people didn't predict was going to be the rise of hybrid and remote work and how that was going to change things. Obviously, agents and this idea of agent as a knowledge expert could really shift the dynamics of teams and how we interface as new people in the teams or our relationship to the offices and our superiors. What do you see happening in terms of something as transformational as remote work happening in the next 5-10 years?
The craziest thing is that in the last 2 years alone, the transformation of this model has happened faster than I thought, thanks to AI. When I was at Microsoft, of course, Teams was a big product there. There was a lot of great thinking going on around the future of meetings, like aspirational things that we're going to be 5-10 years down the road. We're going to have an intelligent assistant that remembers who said what in a meeting and can help you track the action items. And now it's like, man, they're like 4 startups doing that, right? Because the models are powerful now, and the APIs are just so flexible that we can do those sorts of things. And I think that, especially in the era of remote work, that's changing the way people work. One of the hardest things about remote work is just that idea of being in Zoom all day. I miss that human contact. I'm sitting in Zoom all day. I have some flexibility, but man, how do I just keep moving? This idea that we can use AI accelerated tools to share knowledge asynchronously first and also synchronously helps a ton. There are a lot of folks who, when they're in a synchronous meeting, not only is it like just challenging just after hours and hours of doing that, they don't have the comfort to express themselves. Like maybe their language barriers are there, or they communicate in different ways that are more suitable for them. Now with the tools that are out there, they'll be able to go and express themselves in ways that work for them and in ways that are equally compelling. There are tools now out there that will go and take your thoughts are and help you express them in like visually stunning ways, or help you write that statement that has great prose. And there are even now tools that are going to go out there and help you build the avatar of yourself to help you, say the thing you wanted to say, but in a way that feels better delivered. Those types of things are just going to transform this idea of remote and hybrid work, because people now all think that they can show up in their best selves, not just force them to show up only for that live meeting, but to be able to share that knowledge through a variety of vehicles and asynchronously to extend the reach. If we pull this off, you'll see marvelous things happen. Rovo was built. This is like our tool that drives enterprise search, chat, agent building. All that was built last year in just 6 months by a team working remotely of about 400 people. And now I imagine we can do even more in 6 months. But it just shows you what is possible with the tools we have today, and if you have the right culture.
Well, I'm excited. Clearly, there's so many opportunities out there, but let's speak directly to our listeners who might be builders. They might not have the immense data set you have. They might not have the immense funding you have. How do they get started? How do you tackle some of these opportunities when there might be 3 or 4 other startups working in parallel on the exact same problem? You just don't realize it until it's too late. What advice do you have?
It's such an amazing opportunity in time, but you're right that it's really challenging to go and say, I'm the first to market here. There's a lot of builders out there. And now because like all these vibe coding tools are out there, the cost of prototyping and trying something new is just so small that people can't enter. The teams I've noticed with the most traction, the core principles haven't changed. Insane customer focus. And I've seen just some creative tactics where people are really embedding themselves, not because they know the tools are so great, they don't have to go and spend days and days and months necessarily trying to code a prototype. It gives them more time to spend with the customer and to say, like, let me go and find customer zero, figure out what their pains are, and just closely embed with them to turn them into that convicted first customer. Now more than ever, we'll actually see that those are able to go and get those first 100 customers that are just enthusiastic sponsors and evangelists for your own product because they love it so much. Will actually have, I think, far more impact. It'll show that you've really understood the problem and you've been able to go and work with the AI technologies to solve it in a much deeper way. It's super easy for anyone to go in there and write surface level prompts and kind of put the basic dressing on a solutions base and call it done and just go and do the basic demos. The folks who really let customer sensors adopt those tools to help them prototype really quickly and just iterate really fast with that customer sitting practically next to them and eager to take that on, they will get a lot of mileage because the depth of their experience will just be so much greater. Their AI will work much more for them. I expect that if you're a startup and you're just 2 or 3 people and are trying to break through, that's where I'd start right now versus trying to go and make some big technology play. There are lots of big players out there. You can do those sorts of things, but people are looking for problems to be solved. And I think the closer you can get to a customer who has a problem and help them solve it, the better off you're going to be.
We're often having the conversation now about, okay, this technology is saving people time or it's allowing people to do things faster. So what do we do with that time? And often you're getting pressure to just do more of the same thing with that time. And so I personally love and want to just echo that your answer was you now have more time because you're getting things made faster. So you have no excuse not to sit with the customers and use that extra time to get feedback, to iterate, to collaborate. So everyone here heard this first. Go do that. Spend that free time getting to know the customers, letting them get to know what you're building. This has been such a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much. And before we wrap up, though, I would love to know, aside from Atlassian products, what are some AI products that you personally are excited about, either because of their capabilities, designs, or transformative features?
Yeah, I have to say I'm a huge fan of Gamma. Let's not use them. They are really rethinking the way presentations work. And as presentations is even an interesting word because you do really want to sit through another 20 slide deck in a meeting room. The idea now is that sharing your ideas is not best done in a 1970s style slide carousel, right? It's done through some sort of rich interactive medium that could use a combination of text and graphics and sort of interaction design to help bring people along and watch you as you build your concept out or sort of bring your chain of thought together. And I think what that company has done is bring a great combination of thoughtful experience design, like really rethinking, well, how do you go and use modern tools and devices that people have, like phones, plus LLM-based technologies to help people quickly go in, translate their ideas from text that they prompt into a compelling, rich presentation that works across those form factors and feels great. I spoke earlier about this idea of one of the best things that AI will do is help unlock people's voices. People who may not normally be able to go and speak or may not have the confidence to protect themselves. The language barriers might have been strong. I think tools like that will really unlock those types of people. I think about what I do at Atlassian and trying to unleash teams' potentials, and there's products that inspire me that I look around. It's products like that, right? Whether it's inside Atlassian or folks in the ecosystem, just unleashing this potential that people have to express their ideas in new and creative ways and make them real, I think is just going to be things that delight me a ton.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I really appreciate all of your insights and sharing all of your lessons and thought processes. It's been a delight. Thank you so much, Jamil.
Oh, thank you for having me, and looking forward to hearing feedback from your listeners. Hopefully that some of them are using Atlassian products in Rovo. We're always looking to make it better, so feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to answer any questions and work on this AI transformation with all of you.
Yeah, and if people do want to get in touch with you or follow along with any of the work that you're doing, where's the best place to do that?
For the work Atlassian's doing, Atlassian.com, there's a big section on Rovo there that you can use to learn about our AI product and platform. You can also follow me on LinkedIn. Reach out to me if you want to be a customer or you're curious about what we're doing. I'm happy to talk to you directly through LinkedIn.